Hi folks, welcome back. So back in summer of 2025, METR published this study about developer productivity when they were using AI with and without AI tools. And this went super viral because their headline finding was that using AI tools, developers took 19% longer than without AI. And moreover, when interviewed, they felt like they were faster. So they felt like they were going faster, but they were actually going slower. And this study really went viral at the time. All the major anti-AI influencers used it to dunk on using AI for programming. But the authors themselves really try to be very precise about what they're finding. So the time period, early 2025, so this was before Opus 4.5. The number of developers, they only had 16 developers. The nature of the project, it was a large open source project. And these 16 developers were experienced senior developers. Nonetheless, the headline that went viral, especially among influencers, was, oh, look, AI is actually slowing you down. And at the time, I made a video, I'll leave a link to this in the description, that compared the META study to another very large study, which I felt was much more on solid grounding by Sarkar, that had a much larger population size, much more variation in the kinds of developers, and that found huge gains. And to me, that wasn't surprising. So I'll link to this video and you can look at the nuances of what each study is getting at. However, today what I want to talk about is a post that META published just about a week ago, which I wouldn't quite call a retraction of this study, but it is at least a very large change in methodology and design of their experiment. So what they're trying to do is that they're trying to repeat that old experiment, the one they did over here in early 2025. They're trying to repeat that experiment now in August 2025. Now note that this is still before Opus 4.5 came out, and I keep harping on Opus 4.5 because that seemed to be kind of a watershed step change in the quality of AI for software engineering. Anyway, so the META folks are trying to redo this experiment in August 2025. The models still did change. They got better between early 2025 and fall 2025 with a larger pool of developers. And I won't go into all the details, but I'll just zoom into one key point, which is that they don't have confidence in the results of this August 2025 study. And the reason they don't have confidence is because of what they call selection biases. And what is the selection bias they've seen? I'll just read it out here. We have observed a significant increase in developers choosing not to participate in the study because they do not wish to work without AI. So in the experiment, they're trying to break developers into two groups, one which uses AI tools, another which does the programming without any AI tools. And what they're saying is, even though the developers are paid, they're paid $50 an hour, no developer wants to go into the group that is in the no AI condition. And by the way, in this follow-up study, even in spite of that selection bias, their estimate of the slowdown or speed up is now flipping from a slowdown to a speed up, but the confidence intervals are spanning zero, as you can see here. So it's not really something you can statistically derive a conclusion from. But I think it is really telling that developers did not emphatically did not want to go into the no AI condition, even though they were paid. You couldn't pay them to do work without AI. And I found these quotes so amazing, selected developer quotes. I'm torn. I'd like to help provide updated data on this question, but I also really like using AI. I found I am heavily biased sampling the issues. I avoid issues like AI can finish things in just 2 hours, but I have to spend 20 hours. I will feel so painful if the task is decided as AI disallowed. My head's going to explode if I try to do too much the old-fashioned way because it's like trying to get across the city walking when all of a sudden I was more used to taking an Uber. So look, I really commend Meta because they're trying to bring some empirical rigor to this question. But if you look at all this, and I commend them for publishing this, if you look at all this, I think this is now in the realm of obvious. The developers themselves, you can't pay them to go into the no AI group for a study like this. And I think what this points to is, again, going back to the Sarkar study, and experimental design, which is much more observational in real world settings. And I know that has trade-offs when compared to a true RCT, a true randomized control trial, which is what METR are trying to do, to their credit. Anyway, so kudos to METR for really trying to bring some rigor to it, for publishing all this. But I do find that this question of whether AI is helping programmers be more productive, the ship really has sailed on it. Just look at these codes. And there's one more point I want to make, which is that I see so many influencers online dunking on AI, dunking on using Claude Code for programming. And I really feel like they're doing, especially early career software engineers, a huge disservice. And I say this as someone who's hired software engineers both in big tech and at startups. If I were interviewing to hire for a software engineering position today and I came across a candidate who was super skeptical of using AI and shunned it, that would be a huge red flag. That would be like interviewing someone in, say, 2020 or 2022, and the candidate saying, I don't use IDs, I write all my code in Notepad or something like that. Anyway, I thought this meta study was really good. Go check it out. I'll leave links to all that in the description. Thank you very much.